we can be sometimes afraid to feel. We try and put that emotion off. But it is when you really sit with yourself and just allow yourself the time and space to feel that so much transforms. You really start to understand yourself.
Hello, my name is Annemarie, and you are listening to the podcast Biz on the Brain, where we discuss how to realign your life and business to make it a wonderful merger of what fuels your passion, what keeps you in the flow, what attracts the right kind of clients and makes you feel fulfilled and validated in your own self, as opposed to showing up with a facade that is somewhat professional but feels very clean cut and not very relatable, because we've seen it so much that it's kind of overdone. And I love the current trend on social media to be more curated, imperfect, but also just showing yourself in a more relatable mask, devoid of makeup, devoid of any kind of pretense, just to be unapologetically and authentically yourself. And one of the steps to do that is just being very much aware of your intuition, of your patterns and thoughts. And for that, I want to introduce to you the lovely Alice, who is a hypnotherapist. She used to be a travel blogger, and that's how we actually met in multiple places around the world. She's the most lovely person, just full of heart and soul, and just really excites you and captivates you, and you feel like cherished and safe, which is really important when you come to someone to help with your mental health, your mental well-being, and to tap into your subconscious. You need to really trust the person to do that, because you're opening up yourself, and in turn you're also opening up yourself to your own core beliefs that you rather not want to dig up, but you actually need to. As a successful business owner, you want to get rid of all of these blocks, all of these notions and false beliefs that no longer serve you, but that they are very much deeply ingrained in your soul by whoever put it there. Might be from your childhood, might be your environment, might be any kind of things you picked up from media. It doesn't matter, but it's very powerful. It shapes your habit. It shapes your things that you attract in your business, the opportunities you see or don't see, and the way you present yourself to other people. So if you want to be successful, and if you want to level up and do some shadow work, soul digging, self-development, whatever you want to call it, then you also need to be in tune with your soul. And a kind of shortcut is by doing hypnotherapy, and that is an entirely different way of tapping into your subliminal messaging, into your subconscious, and just doing some digging, some spring cleaning right there, but also being very gentle. It's not anything with like reprogramming or mind control, nothing like that. It's very soft, very nice. And I want to let Alice tell you more about it. Then, I can't. I'm not the expert. So I want to give the floor to Alice. And without much further ado, let's start. So hello, Alice. Thank you for coming back on interview series with me. And this time it is for a podcast. I'm super excited.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me. When you even told me about the topic, I was like, yes, let's talk about it. I'm very excited to see what comes up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought you were the perfect person to talk to about anything related to intuition, because you made it your kind of purpose, your mission to help other people literally tap into their intuition through hypnosis. And, psychology has always been big with you. You studied it, you worked in it, and you constantly evaluate and reevaluate and restructure your business to better help and empower women to not just find their voice, because we have a voice, but to really own it, and to own it to ourselves, and to fulfill our selves in a way, to actually step up and be more unapologetic and more in line with ourselves, I think.
Yeah. Yes, here. You've perfectly summed it up, and it is very much about unleashing the real you and really being true and authentic to yourself so that you can follow your purpose. And I love it that you also mentioned fulfillment is all about that, all about fulfillment, joy, and really kind of leaving a legacy that you're proud of. Yeah,
exactly. Because I feel like, especially as women, we are so conditioned to define ourselves through services to other people, to put ourselves after everybody else. And I certainly have been raised like that. And so it felt selfish to actually have your own wants and needs put first. But it's kind of like when you are on an airplane and I tell you to look after yourself first, put on the mask yourself on first, and then you can assist others, because like you're no use when you just fall unconscious, right? And a lot of people walk through life unconscious and they don't have any additional love to share because they give it all away, and then they're just not their best selves, and everybody can feel the vibe, and it brings everybody down. Or you feel like a burden, then everybody feels like a burden. It's just like self-perpetuating, and it's really not helpful, and it's not fulfilling. And I think everybody strives for like success and money, but like what good is it if you are just miserable, or if you feel like you're not worthy, when you don't realize that everybody is worthy, but you're like always searching for it. And I think the intuition is like the way back, because it's so hard to grasp. I don't know, how would you define it?
Brilliant. So I think intuition is quite hard to define. I think it's quite hard to define because it is such a personal thing to each of us. You know, when you kind of ask people, well, how do you know? You know, and they're going to be like, oh, well, I kind of get this tingle in here, or I just get this gut feeling here, or, you know, it's kind of, I get this spidey sense. And intuition is very unique to each person. But actually, I would argue on the other side that actually intuition is something that's so deeply ingrained within all of us. Because if you go back to cave women times, intuition is what has really got us to where we are today, without those kind of fears, so to speak, within us of am I going to survive, or am I going to make it, or am I going to be successful, or you know, all of these kind of fears directly lead back into intuition, because intuition is like our own inner radar to kind of be like, oh, you should really follow that path, or intuition is going to be like, don't even go there. You know, so we all have it. And yeah, in this day and age, it's so interesting. We've obviously, our times have changed. You know, in the past it was all about very sharp toothed predators coming to get us, and whether we should stay and fight or run away or freeze. But as I was saying, in today's world, it's very different. We're kind of using our intuition in different ways, about whether we should follow that purpose or whether we should make a connection with that particular person. But it is all essentially down to survival. Yeah, very, very interesting. And that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was just kind of wanted to say that in today's day and age, we're so programmed, so to speak, so conditioned to think with our mind, to be like very strategic when we're kind of working out things. But actually, we know the answer already is in our body. But so many of us have been cut off from our body and what our body is telling us. And then we can feel very frustrated by that, depressed, hopeless, because we're not actually connecting with ourselves.
Exactly. That is actually why I started a podcast, because I'm in that situation right now. And most of the time, like all the time, I struggle with being in my head and trying to make sense of things when I do know the answer, but it just doesn't feel like an okay way to go, because I can't make sense of it. I can't explain it. I feel like I have to justify it through logic, or maybe I don't actually want to face it, you know, because it's scary. It's a new endeavor. It's like a new thing I want to try, a change, putting myself out there, being more vulnerable, like starting a podcast. And then I'm starting in my head of like trying to control the variables to make it okay to start the process, you know, have all the episodes outlined, maybe have all the catchphrases, all the branding. And fast forward, it's been like 5 months and I still hadn't published a podcast. And so I was like, you know what, just going to start it and going to make that a topic, because really I see a lot of people struggling with intuition when it's just basically the most effort of like subduing it. It's just, I see a lot of people, including myself, trying to muffle that voice and then be like, oh, I can't hear it anymore. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, yes, you do. You just don't want to listen. And it's getting harder and harder to do it, because then the voice, I don't know, gets pissed off. And it's just like, you know, you're not going to hear it. So I'm going to make it really hard until like at a breaking point. And then the only thing you can listen to is that voice. I've had that moment a couple of times where it's just like, I'm just going to be quiet until like you run yourself into a wall. And then I'm going to not tell you I told you so, but I'm like, I'm still here. I'm still saying the same thing. So do you want to do it now? I don't know. That's how I feel about intuition. It's just always there. And I had this really interesting incident when I was like at my lowest point in my life before I started being a freelancer, didn't find a job, was like bullied at work. And somehow my best friend's mother got me a spot at her therapist. And I'd never been to one before. I had like all of the judgments and all of the preconceived notions, all negative. So I was there and was just like, so what do I talk about? Like, I'd have nothing to talk about. Like, I'm numb inside. Like, what do you want to hear? She's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, of course you asked that. And I was just sitting there defiant. And then she just tried to like pull it out of me. And I was like, I don't know. I have no feeling. I have no intuition. I have nothing left. And then she was like, okay, so where does that feeling of, where does that sit in you? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, so you sound a bit angry. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so where is that in your body? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I was so confused. She's like, can we just not, she just wouldn't say anything anymore. She just looked at me. She's like, tell me where it is. I'm like, I was so confused. And it took me like 40 minutes to just like sit with myself and be like, I guess it's like here. And it's kind of like gray. And it kind of feels like someone's sitting on me. She's like, see, there you go. And like, the more you tune in with yourself and come up with these ridiculous feelings, the more you can actually see when things get out of hand, because you've already explored that. You're like, oh, this is where the intuition is excited, or this is where the intuition warns me, or this is where I feel like in this middle of excitement and fear, because sometimes it's really hard to differentiate. Like when you like check your body also, like you can tell, like there, Marie Folio has this really cool practice where she's like, okay, I have to make a decision. So I'm gonna flip a coin, and then you can feel what you actually want it to be. But also you can just check in with your body. You make the decision, and then you're like, do I feel like this or do I feel like this? Like your body will tell you if you just actually look. It's really fascinating.
Yes, yeah. It's really cool that your therapist was like really trying to reconnect with your body, because we live in such a busy world with so many distractions. We've got our phone, we've got Netflix. Like, I mean, literally, it is different from cavewoman times, because we could literally just completely distract ourselves all the time and still survive.
I know, I do it all the time. I have to catch myself.
Because we can be sometimes afraid to feel. We try and put that emotion off. But it is when you really sit with yourself and just allow yourself the time and space to feel that so much transforms. You really start to understand yourself. All those emotions that have been building up within you can finally be released. And it's so transformative in so many ways.
Exactly. Like I told you before, I've been meaning to do a meditation today because I felt like I'm a bit off, and I just didn't do it. And now I'm like this little ball of energy and I need to release it. I'm like, yeah, you should have, if you had sat down, and again, I'm trying to notice that I'm beating myself up about it because like that's a pattern too. It's not helpful. But like if I had done it, I would have like noticed that I needed to like run it off or dance it off or something, or like where it sits, just like I guess on my shoulders right now because I'm like hunching. But like when you catch yourself, then you can just release things or like just practice the acceptance of it. And I feel like the more you do that, the more you can like kind of communicate with your intuition or get into that gut feeling. Because I noticed I'm having it the loudest when I go travel, but I'm just so overstimulated by everything. And just like I have to make snap decisions in the moment, where basically I'm being distracted and I can't be in my head because it's just like not possible because I'm not in like a safe space, in a comfort zone. That's when I make the best spur of the moment decisions, like a thin slice judgment. We're like, oh, this alleyway, there's something off, can't explain it, just go somewhere else. Or like this person, weird vibes. And next morning I find out he robbed everybody, like true story. He robbed me too. I was just like, oh, thank you for being an asshole. And, and some people are like, oh, I don't know why, but I like you so much. I want to be friends, like at school. And then you're like, start to be in your head like, oh, I can't just approach them and like ask them. But yes, you can. Don't make it weird. You can go up to a person and say like, hey, I like your headscarf. Like, what? That's so cool. and start a conversation,
Yeah, travel would definitely reignite your intuition for sure, right? Because like you're saying, especially when like I'm in India right now, and it just assaults all the senses in all the right ways. The smells, sounds, like everything is so different. And yeah, I mean, if you really want to feel, go travel because your intuition is going to completely reignite because it's just a whole new environment. And so yeah, travel is definitely one way to do it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to go back actually to one point you were kind of talking about, you were saying that the kind of the things can keep coming up and can kind of keep pushing them down. I think you were kind of saying that in a roundabout way.
Yeah. No, I do.
And I love that about the universe. Like universe has kind of always got your back in that sense, in that it is not going to let you kind of get away with that for very long. I always have found, and I found it in my own experience, that if you keep pushing an intuition down, the universe is going to keep presenting you with opportunities to kind of make a different choice. Whether that's a pattern that you're doing in your relationships or a pattern that you're doing when it comes to your work and what your biggest dreams are, and you're not doing it, then universe is going to kind of keep giving you those intuitive hits if you're not making the right decision for your soul, so to speak.
Exactly.
So listen, really listen, and also meet yourself with kind of love and compassion in that. When I think about my relationships, for example, I just kept repeating this pattern in my relationships. I was like, what's the problem? Like, universe, I'm done. Like, I've learned the lesson. Like, stop presenting me with this kind of particular relationship. But I still had not learned my lesson. And I'm just for the universe, like, keep showing me in that moment, like, okay, I'm giving you this intuitive hit. Are you going to go that way, or are you going to make a new choice? And I finally kind of made a different choice in my relationship. I'm so grateful for that. But it is really cool to see that it's okay. If you miss it the first time, it's probably going to come back around. You're going to get a second chance,
Exactly. And it's also part of being in your head. Like, I know logically what the decision should be, or like that is a lesson that I need to learn. But did I actually change? Did I adjust my habits? Did I adjust my mindset? No, maybe that's why I had been presented with that lesson. And if I had actually taken a different route this time, then that would have been the final lesson. But no, I didn't learn. So I'm going to get it again and again. And I used to be like such a victim about it. I'm like, oh yeah, the universe, like everything hates me. I'm just like such a like poor, like all these things keep happening. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm such a good person. I'm trying really hard. And I'm like, well, now I know better. Now I'm like, you have agency. You're not this victim. You can just change variables. You can also change your attitude to it. I think that's the most important part. Just acknowledging the lesson, acknowledging that you messed up, acknowledging that, yes, maybe you've been a pushover. Maybe you didn't listen to your intuition. Maybe you're not actually happy. You're just telling yourself that to make others not feel bad about it. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to like rescue you, and nobody's going to make the plans come true unless you actually do the work. And you can't just have other people kind of work towards it with you and put that on them. Because I feel like in relationships, a lot of people do that they expect the better half to complete them, or all of this nonsense that we're being like fed to in media. They're just like a bonus. They should complete your life. It should like support you on your journey through all of the ups and downs. And the same way goes for you. Like, you should support them. You shouldn't put the onus on them to help you level up if you just sit back and let them do it. Like, no.
Yeah, a couple of things kind of say to just what you said. So this is the thing, like all of our conditioning we pick up, it's very much through our kind of childhood, teenage, even early adult years. And the thing is that we carry that, we carry that with us all the way into adulthood. But the thing is that the most important thing that we need to realize is that what was then is not now, when we are people pleasing, or when we feel that we have to follow certain rules, or we feel that we have to be a certain person, actually, as an adult, we have so much more freedom. But we can kind of get caught in that mindset of, I'm still a child and I actually still have no power, So that's one of the biggest things to realize, that actually what was then is definitely not now. You have way more freedom, way more autonomy, and you can really start making your choices. And just like you were saying there, you really have to make a choice to yourself and declare to yourself that I am choosing to empower myself, to make the choice to have what I want, be what I want, and do what I want. And the process of doing that is very simple. It's all about the images that you show yourself in your mind, and it's all about the words that you say to yourself. These are the two most important things that you need to know about changing your mindset and creating a limitless reality. It's all in the words you say and all in the images that you show yourself, because your mind is such a beautiful sponge. It's very malleable. It never stops changing and transforming and being on your team. It actually, even when you can get frustrated with it because you're like, why is it stopping me from doing that? It actually thinks it's doing the best for you. We just need to kind of retrain it a little and feed it with all the good stuff, to create this new reality.
Exactly. This is like inner fight with yourself.
Yes. I mean, this is the thing. We can be very external in, the kind of victim mentality of, I'm just going to wait in my tower and I'm just going to wait to be rescued. And my future depends on other people, not me. But you need to really be like, no, I'm a queen. I'm a queen. I'm not a princess anymore. And I'm really standing in my power and choosing, to change things by myself. But it is a quite interesting discussion that we're having here, because when we as women have that realization, what can actually happen is we kind of go too much the other way. And what I'm talking about here is that you're like, okay, no one's coming to rescue me. So that means I've got to do everything. I'm going to work my ass off. Like, I'm going to put in like 12 hours per day. I'm going to do everything to make sure that no one's going to do that to me again. But the, the thing is,
I feel called out.
Okay. Okay. And hey, I did exactly the same. I kind of felt so suppressed for so many years. And I kind of just went on this, like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to prove to everybody, that I'm not what they say and blah, blah, blah. But actually, as you kind of go through that process, you start to realize, and this kind of goes back to intuition again, that actually universe has what you need already, and you already are enough. Like, you are enough as you are. Sure, I mean, we can kind of add on extra extensions and like improve, of course. Like, that's what life is about, learning and transforming and just making yourself like super awesome. But actually, it's really good to know that you are enough already, and that you don't have to push so hard or force so hard or control so hard in order to actually get what you want. It's not so much about push. It's more about receive and know. We're kind of moving into like masculine and feminine energies here a bit more. It's about a play between these energies. And respecting both and using both within yourself, because regardless of whether you're male or female, however you identify, we all have this masculine and feminine within us. Feminine? I'm saying feminine energy within us. And it's about, I'm going to take both superpowers and combine them and be in flow, like trust myself. I'm going to do the work, but I'm also going to trust. And when you trust and listen to your intuition, then the magic really starts to happen.
That's so true. Yeah, I felt like when I like surrendered, because I was at this lowest point, it was like, surprise me, universe, I don't care anymore. Things fell into place like magically. That's how I became like a freelancer, because just random people showed up, offered me kindness and Some of them helped me just do a media kit, didn't know what that was. Someone printed business cards, like random strangers. Someone helped me work on my pitching skills, and other people advised me on certain social media strategies. And just naturally, you're just gravitating towards people like that when you just allow yourself to be helped, when you allow yourself to show up fully, that you don't know anything and you are not in control at all. So you can just like float around a bit. But if you feel into yourself and you feel like there's some conviction of maybe you start with what you really don't want, or maybe you have this goal, but you're not admitting it to yourself or to others, it's okay to keep it a secret from certain people, because they might just, bombard you with all of the negative energy and self-doubt that you would not need if it's still fragile. But just to hold on to it and feel where you're glowing inside, certain things that you do, even if it's just a hobby, because I think it all stems from being this productive being to be validated. I certainly catch myself still in that when I'm just doing things just to do things, instead of seeing rest time and self-reflection as actually productive. And it doesn't have to be productive either. You can just chill. You can be a potato. It's okay. It doesn't diminish your self-worth, and it can help you tune into yourself as well. And also find people that are on that track as well. So if you're always around people who are never satisfied in a negative way, because it's just like you achieve something, but it's never good enough. But instead of seeing it, okay, this is a new level, but there's more to go, but you can still celebrate how far you've come. It's just a mindset shift. And so you have to be really careful how you see yourself, how you talk to yourself, and how you surround yourself with people and their self-talk, and because then rubs off on you, right? And that also clouds your judgment and your intuition, I think.
Yeah, that's a great thing you've actually brought up, because to really tune into our intuition, we do need to set boundaries in place where you're like, okay, this is my energy and this is your energy, and I'm gonna trust myself. And that's something that I feel can take time, right? Especially, if certain experiences have happened as we're growing up, you can really doubt yourself. You can get the intuitive hit, but you're like, oh, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know best. Maybe I should ask someone else. Maybe I should follow someone else's advice. And yeah, like really tuning into intuition is actually about trusting yourself, knowing yourself, but B, kind of setting the boundaries, so that when people try and take you down another path, you just say, okay, what do I want? What do I think? What do I feel? And then you can't really be steered off another way. Yeah, that's such a good point that you brought up.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with too, like the boundaries and knowing, because sometimes you just know, you're like, I don't want to hang out more, or I can't, and I shouldn't have to explain myself in some situations. It's just like, it just is. And then you can like have your opinion on it. It's fine. But it often feels like personal, especially to me, especially when you grew up a people pleaser. Everything feels like, ooh, am I now a bitch because I said like no? Am I allowed to say no? Do I have to explain it? And you're like, no, you actually don't. And that is such an uncomfortable feeling to grow out of, because you don't want it. So you don't want it. So that should be it. It shouldn't be a debate, but you start with yourself and debate this and trying to like make others feel comfortable, when you just make it worse. In a way, you make it worse for everybody, because then they feel like, why is she trying to explain it so much? Like, why is she just, is there something else? I don't know. And then you are down here. It's just like this weird circle when you just not clear on it, even though you just accept it and communicate it firmly, I think. But like, that's just a process, I guess. Like, I'm still working on that.
Yes. Being British, like I always use a lot of like tea kind of examples when I'm working with my clients. And I always say, like, you got to fill your cup first. You really got to honor your cup of tea. Like, make sure it's full, make sure you've got your favorite things in there. And then you can start pouring your cup of tea for other people. If you keep giving other people cups of tea and you don't get a cup of tea yourself, I mean, that's a tragedy in England. I mean,
That's bad. I imagine you just, like back in the days, like Jane Austen times, for instance, when they had like the first round of tea bag was for the guests, and then the second one's for yourself, and then the other ones are like for the kids, and then for the staff. And I like, just like when there's this hierarchy, and I feel like we still sometimes have that with the tea. Like everybody gets the first round of the tea, and I just get the watered down version.
Yeah.
No
one wants a watered down cup of tea. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no sharing of the tea. Everybody gets your own tea bag. Okay.
But I kind of feel like, the tea is almost like magical. Like the more you start giving yourself more cups of tea, then actually the more cups of tea that appear that you can give to other people, it's magic,
Yeah.
You have
it's actually like I grew up with this children's book story. I don't know if it was translated or if it's foreign, but basically it was just there's this little mouse or something, and it's raining, so it stands underneath this tiny mushroom, and then some other animal comes by and she's like, hey, can I stand there too? And she's like, oh, there's not space, but we can like shuffle in. And then more and more animals come, like bigger animals too, and everybody kind of fits. They didn't realize the mushroom was growing in the wet weather because it loves the rain, so like everybody could fit. And then they weren't like, no, there's no space, I'm not going to make space. But that was the lesson behind it. And I thought it was so cute. And like, it's growing, the more you share, the more you can share happiness, and the more you can find space for everybody, because there is everything's so competitive. But why don't we just collaborate more? Because we're always finding like territorial, like, oh, I can't share my business secrets with you, or like, are you trying to pitch me or steal me clients? Or no, we can all do our own thing, but also help each other.
Very much. Yeah, this is actually when you look at the intuition again, like, and you kind of see the fears that can kind of come out of that area. What you're talking about is one of these fears. It's the fear of scarcity. The fear that, if we're talking from a business context, what you just described, like, if I don't get that client, someone else is, and if I don't put that idea out there, then someone else is gonna, take it, and I need to go faster, I need to go harder, I need to push more, and try. You gotta flip it. You gotta trust in yourself. You gotta trust that there is an abundance around you. You gotta trust that you are connected to what is for you. It's a complete mind reframe in that sense. This is a big fear into society right now of just scarcity of resources, scarcity of not being able to have enough money. But it's really not the case. It really isn't. There's abundance all around. And when you really listen to what you want to do and what you want to give to the world, then everything just opens up. Everything opens up.
Exactly. And that's what's been bugging me so much about business and business practices, which is why I am, again, trying to realign my business and trying to find it more centered around intuition, around compassion, and myself, especially like myself, because I don't want to bend over backwards and try to apply all of these strategies. I kind of feel icky. I know like a lot of people have this ick with sales, including me, because a lot of it is just like trying to mind read people and find their weaknesses or something you can sell them on, and use that kind of against them. For instance, when people tell you how to convince someone after they said no, how to make it into a yes. That always felt like very manipulative. Like, sure, there's a lot of things you can discuss. Maybe they have some misconceptions. Maybe there's just some questions that are not answered, and you can help solve the problem. But if it's coming from let me just convince you because I get a benefit off of it, I know best, and I totally disregard your situation. Maybe you really do not have a budget, or you're not mentally actually able to process all of the information, even though I could help you. You're just not there. And when clients tell you, I don't think this is the right fit right now, I don't think I can do it, then to believe them and not come at them with this desperation where like, oh, I could use the money. Like, I want you to say yes. And then maybe you get them to say yes, but then they feel kind of bad about it. The vibe is just off if you try to push them and if you use all of these clever marketing techniques, because a lot of it does work for sure. I mean, they've been honing it for so long.
Yeah, I'm just so happy that you've brought this up. Like, it's been on my mind, and I've been talking about it a lot of my clients lately. Do you know what? The world is changing. Like, we have I feel we've just been lied to and manipulated and really kind of put into places of pain in order to be sold to. You can see it across the board, you know, like makeup. Like if you don't have this lipstick, you look like an absolute ogre, you know.
Right. Or the shaving industry, like how that came about. They just made up stuff and now it's just like a huge insecurity for women. Like what?
Exactly. And, you know, do you know what? The world is catching on. The world's like, do you know what? I'm not going to be manipulated like that anymore. I'm not going to be sold to like that anymore. And thank goodness, you know, I've really been through that journey myself. When I first started out really on this business, there was just some things now that I see that I just wish I hadn't done, you know, and I'm really realizing that sales does not, I just didn't know better at that time. And I'm just realizing that sales does not have to be manipulative and icky and slimy. Actually, it can just come from a place of joy, of authenticity, and of just compassion and love. And like, this is Damon get me started on the coaching industry. Like there's just so much like I could talk about in the coaching industry. A lot of coaches are operating from a place of complete scarcity. They're like, and they're, you know, and like you're saying, when they're on a call with a client, they're like, I need this client. And if I don't work with this client, then that client is going to fail. Right. This is what the mindset they have. Like that client's going to fail if they don't work with me. And if they're also thinking, I'm going to fail because I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills next month. Whoa, things have got to change. And they are changing. I know it. They're changing rapidly. And we're definitely coming from a way more authentic place. And it's always interesting as well in business. I'm kind of stepping out of coaching now. But what are one of the most popular products that sells? Scripts. Scripts. Strategy plans, like do A, B, C, and D, and then you're going to get E. And where is the intuition in that? Like you are not thinking for yourself and connecting to people if you have a script. You are not doing your business as your most authentic self if you're following a strategy and you're like, if I step away from this path, then I'm going to fail. Like, no. You know, like I really encourage you as a business owner to really trust your intuition and be in the flow and just see what comes up. You have a product idea, great, go for it. Like I remember when you contacted me for this podcast, you're like, I had this idea, I want to do this podcast, like let's do it now. Like, you know, well, I have the momentum and like my intuition is turned on, it's on fire. I'm like, yes, like let's do it now because, you know, you're listening to yourself, you're listening to the idea and going with it. So yeah, more trust, less manipulation.
And that could be your script. Like I find if I'm actually actively listening instead of planning the next steps during a conversation of like, oh my gosh, I sense some kind of inhibition. How do I overcome it? If you're like actually listening to them, then they will feel much more heard. It's just usually, you know, when you talk to people, they remember how you made them feel, basically. And if you let them talk more than you talk, usually they think the conversation went much better. Like it's just a psychological thing. But if you actually genuinely want to talk to people and want to help and actually see it as a conversation of maybe gauging if this is a fit for myself and for them as well, then you can see it as just getting to know each other and then see, okay, I have all of these offers, but maybe they don't really actually work for you. I know someone else, or maybe I should tweak them for you. Maybe you need like a combination of A and B. So I'm not set on a specific outcome by myself. And I'm also much more open to actually working with your specific pain points, which is why I hate scripts, because they don't really understand the intensity and the spectrum that people operate on. You can be in similar situations, and we all basically don't have any unique lived experiences. Like someone else has had that too. But you can just generally connect with people and then actually touch into your intuition and see what they actually need. You can like ask backup questions. I'm hearing this, but do you actually struggle with that? Like, I feel like this is just some cover up you're telling yourself. Am I correct? Maybe. And then you can talk about something that actually would be helpful to move forward with. because you just listened and you felt into that, or you can like sense someone's being a bit apprehensive about, and you then ask questions about that. Is there something I can help you with? Like, is there some doubt you have? Because I'm sensing that. Maybe I'm wrong, but we can talk about that instead of me trying to like chop it off, chop it away. I'm just curious and coming from a place of gentleness almost, I think.
Yes.
And if you get like so excited for this call, because sometimes I get like so pumped up that I'm just not present enough, because then I'm like sweating, and then I'm being conscious of my sweating, and then I can't pay any attention, and then I feel like, oh no, I didn't hit the call, because people sense energy even if they're not an empath, which is a very memey thing by now. But yeah, you do sense people's energy. You can sense if they're
Everybody
off.
senses energy.
So,
Everyone does. Yeah, I mean, and that's our intuition again. That's like our most primal thing. Like we know, we know. Someone doesn't even need to say anything. We can just feel it. Yeah, for sure.
right. And another thing that bothers me a lot with scripts, and I like to talk a lot about it because I was diagnosed with ADHD this year, and so many things click now. And one of the things is basically, if you tell me what to do, I will not do it. It doesn't matter how reasonable it is, how much I wanted to do it. Even if I'm currently doing it, if you tell me to do it, I will stop. And if you tell me how things are supposed to work, usually they come from a very generic, standardized, neurotypical perspective, which literally does not work with my different setup of brain, because my mind goes from details. I see all of the different variables, and then I'm trying to piece together like a whole. A lot of people just like start from like, I see the gist of it, and I'm gonna like mine down until I get to the details and getting to being a specialist. And I'm like, I want to be a specialist, very superficial one in all the things, because they're all cool, they're all tied up together, they're all really nice. And then people are like, no, you have to niche down. You cannot just do all the things. You have to like, people won't understand what you're doing. And right now I'm in the situation where like, people can just not work with me then. I want the people who understand that it is helpful to have different brains, to have different approaches, to actually have a fresh outside perspective, regardless of their neurotype. And we've just shoehorned ourselves in business. And that's why a lot of companies don't grow, or that suddenly when someone gives the interns free reign on TikTok, they explode, even though it has nothing to do with the company branding, because they didn't A, take it seriously, and B, still understand social media, and C, they just, work with the flow, with the current hive mind in a way, instead of just replicating and adjusting old patterns in marketing. And that's why marketing is it's just trying to tell you something that you need, and they have the solution, instead of just like, okay, we have a problem, or maybe we can just make your life better. Because people do like aesthetics, they do like comfort, even if they don't need it. You can just be honest.
There's two things that you've said that I think are really important to highlight. The first one being about this whole niche thing, right? So it's quite interesting. I work a lot with human design in my work, and quite a lot of my clients are manifesting generators. And
I'm a manifestor.
Amazing.
That makes so much sense, doesn't it?
You're a manifestor?
Yeah.
Amazing. See, that's the thing. You don't even need to like speak to anyone else when you have an idea. You can literally just go ahead and do it, which is just
but that's the thing that always held me back, because I always felt like I needed everybody's permission and needed to like talk it out with everybody, instead of just like be like, F it, I'm just going to do it. And then I got backlash from it, but ultimately it was the best decision whenever I did it. And then looking back at when I just toned it down, things always derailed. Like every time I was like, okay, you're right. And then I felt bad about it, and it just didn't work. Instead of like when I just like went off to Australia and then I started my life and started my business, like everybody was like, what the heck you're doing? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you, I'm just going to do it, and that was the best decision. And like with this podcast, I'm like, I'm not going to doing it.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's very cool to be a manifestor. The only other thing that I would add to that is that this is the thing, like manifestors don't have to do this for them. They just have to do that for other people, just so that people don't freak out. Like totally do your thing, but just tell people what you're going to do and then just do it anyway. That's the key to being the manifestor. You don't care.
That's what I struggle with.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I think it's just about it's about not caring. It's not about caring what people think. It's just like, I want to do this. I'm going to go do this, and I've done it, kind of thing.
Right. It's more about caring about yourself more than the others' thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, in human design, when they kind of talk about these strategies and they kind of say manifestors should inform, it kind of just puts other people at ease. You know, people who really support you, like you move so fast that they probably can't keep up. So if you just kind of say, oh, by the way, I'm going to do this, they'll be like, okay, keep rocking.
Right. Yeah, I have a few friends that are like, so where are you? Like, what you're doing? Like, they have no idea what's been going on. And I've like transformed into different kinds of personalities, like different kinds of even work, you know, like when I started in Australia, I didn't have like the business that I have now. I did all the things, you know, I was housekeeping, I was door-to-door sales, I was social media managing, I was copywriting, I was making sandwiches, I was trying to be a barista, that sucked, you know, like all of the different things I tried. And I remember when I was at one internship and this one guy listed all of the different things he did as a backpacker, I was then like, oh my God, I want that. I want all of things. Like, I don't want to be just one thing. I want to try all of the things. I remember that impulse, and I didn't know where it came from, because all my life I've been like, you just have one route and then you follow it. And that didn't never seem good enough for me. And, you know, I should have listened to the intuition just from the start, because like eventually I did it, but it just took me to get there.
Sure. And that's always the way, right? It's always about the journey and walking all those paths to kind of see, oh yeah, actually, this is where I want to be, kind of thing. So I wanted to say that about the manifesting generators is that it's okay. So just say if you're kind of new to human design, like basically when it comes to human design, there's like 5 different energy types. And Annemarie, you say that you're a manifestor. There's also generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And manifesting generators and generators actually make up 70% of the population. And they're about 35% each. And it's quite interesting for manifesting generators. They get very stuck on this one niche thing, because actually the superpower of a manifesting generator is that you can do many things at once. You are like the most awesome multitasker. And they usually come to me and they're like, oh, I'm so like unfocused, you know, and I'm such an overcommitter. This is what they think. But I'm like, oh no, like, no. Like, if you want to like run like 3, 4, 5 businesses at once, go for it, because you are totally in your element when you do that. You know, manifesting generators can juggle many balls at once, and they should be very proud of that. They need to do many things at once. So when it comes to kind of like, I just have to focus on one thing, I just have to have one niche, not necessarily. Another idea that's come to me actually just talking about a human design is that, you know, for the people listening to this particular episode, I was saying, right, that manifesting generators and generators make up 70% of the population, and they have a particular way of tapping into their intuition. So there's a good chance that you might actually be one of these 2 types, right? So I kind of have a little bit of advice or wisdom for you when it comes to listening to your intuition, if you are a manifesting generator or generator. So it's really interesting. Manifesting generators and generators have this system in them, this switch in them, which either turns on when they're very excited and something feels really right, or it turns completely off when they feel that that's not the thing for them. And a lot of us can detach from this system, but there's actually a very easy way to reattach with it. And it all actually comes down to guttural sounds. So as a child, there was a good chance that when you were really excited about something, that you were like, like, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, I do like this, like the
exactly.
Wallace and Gromit was like, jeez, movement. Like, just we're like, oh my God, like, I'm excited. I need like to just jump up and down.
Exactly. You can just hear it in your sound that you're so excited. But if you probably didn't want to do something, can you kind of guess what sounds a child would make?
Sign and just like,
Yeah, Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, if you were like unsure, it would probably be like,
Oh yeah,
it's like,
just like, do you want to do that?
exactly. Like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But if you really don't want to do something, you'll be like, like this.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, these kind of sounds. And actually, the problem is that parents can kind of try to condition us out of that, because they're like, use your words, like say no, thank you, or I don't want to do that now, or yes, please,
or do it anyway. Hug your aunt, even though you don't want to. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, really reconnecting with these sounds, whether you just feel it in your body or you hear it in your head, or you even say it out loud if you want to, like. This is really about trusting that and listening to these sounds that you can hear yourself or feel yourself making. And that will really help you reconnect with your intuition. Your body just knows that when you're presented with an opportunity, whether you want to do it or not, you just got to trust it, really trust it. And that will really help you lead the way in your intuition and where you want to go in life. Yeah.
That's so true. And it's like one of the things that I remember. Like, I don't have that many like early childhood memories, but like I always remember when I was like, I didn't want to do it. I was talked into it, and it just felt like someone was dragging me over coals. Like, and even today, something doesn't feel right. Even though it might make sense, it might make people happy, it might be logical. I feel like there's a whole like a security wall coming down, and it just feels like I can't operate my body. It's just like wading through water, and I have to like use up so much energy to do it, and it just feels like it's pulling me back. And it's so hard to communicate that to people when they're like, this is not a hard decision to make. I'm like, but it's awful, it's impossible, and I physically feel I cannot do it. And then people have no compassion to that, and they're like, you're being dramatic, you're being so sensitive. I'm like, yes, I am a very sensitive person, we've established that. So why do I have to work against my nature? Right? So it's also one of the things I'm trying to work with also in my business, where I just really find like, okay, this approach sounds like a good option, but it just doesn't feel right. I know I will not sustain it. I don't even want to waste energy in attempting it. I remember at one point, like I think 2014, someone told me like, yeah, Google Plus is like the next best social platform. And he was like so adamant. He was just like, yeah, you're missing out if you're not doing it. Like your business gonna, like those very black and white business advice. And he was just pushing it on me. And I was like, doesn't work for me. It just doesn't feel right. And his voice kept playing in my head. Like, he was a stranger. It didn't even matter what this random person said, but I just couldn't let it go. And so I did it. It never went anywhere. I think I got like 11 followers or something. And I like pushed through it for months. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, who am I trying to please with this? This is not the platform for me. And then it just didn't even last, And then when TikTok came out, I was like, oh, I don't want to try it. Like, that sounds silly, knowing nothing about TikTok. And then I just like went with it. I don't know why. I think I saw some reel, I guess, probably. And then like, I'm forever addicted with this. And this is how I found out I have ADHD, and I have all of the different shared experiences that I thought were so unique, and I was so isolated with it. And then it's just perfect for me. It's not perfect for everybody, but it's just like, this feels right. I don't like Instagram. I like TikTok, and I don't have to change that.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the thing. Yeah, always follow what you want to do. Just because someone is having success on a particular platform doesn't mean that it's your platform. Something that you brought up as well, which would be quite interesting to kind of discuss, is the intuition can kind of hit us in different ways. I find with some of my clients, depending on their human design, that some of us we just literally know. We know the answer like that. Mm-hmm. And we're 100% certain about it. But for others of us, it can actually take some time. You need to really honor that actually you may need to take a week, like a month even in some cases, to come to a decision, depending on your energy type. So mm-hmm. if you just kind of sense that you're not that person that can make decisions like in the now, honor that.
Me, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to honor that. I am definitely one of those people that makes decisions in the now. I just have the hit and I just know it, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. But many of my clients are definitely more cyclical and more emotional in the sense that they really need to feel the emotions, really need to feel things out before they can make a decision, which can be a little difficult in today's world because people are like, make a decision, like do it, like, like time,
Right. It's just additional pressure, and either
the
you
pressure.
make a snap decision or you retreat into yourself, and it gets harder and harder because suddenly you have this outside voice trying to control you, and you just it just makes your voice like less effective in their eyes. It just feels like that, and then you start to distrust yourself in it, and then you start to like trying to analyze it and being in your head again. When you're like, no, I don't have to explain this to you. I just don't, it doesn't work right now. I can't do this decision. And I always say, like, usually I know my answer. I kind of feel the answer, but I'm saying like, I need to sleep on it. So I have conviction attached to the clarity, right? And then it really becomes something I can stand by. That's usually my process. Like I kind of feel it. I kind of know my answer. And then I overanalyze it maybe. And then I just like, I'm sleeping on it. I'm going to look at it fresh tomorrow morning, and then I can tell you like yes or no. And it also I feel like it also justifies it more to other people if you like have time pass. It's kind of like performative in some way. It's just like, oh yeah, it looks like you really mulled it over, when you're like, no, I just twiddled my thumbs until like I could tell you. And then they're like, yeah, okay, I see your decision. You're like, you really thought it over. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole other area, isn't it, about kind of communication skills and how to speak to people, and kind of speak in the most assertive and also most loving way. I spent a lot of time, really learning that and looking into that to learn how to communicate. It's something that the world needs a lot. Learn to communicate, and we're getting there.
It does. And like everybody, I always run into problems. I've always had problems with communication because I would say a thing and I thought I was clear, and then people took it a different way. And then when you try to explain it even more, then it suddenly derails. And you're like, what happened? I just meant something very literally, and you just made a story about it. And the more I like see that, and the more I'm trying to stop myself from attaching stories and asking clarifying questions, the more I see kind of the gap even widen. Like I can see the different things you might be thinking, and so I can like try to get it out of you, kind of like gentle parenting style approach. But it's so difficult when a lot of people are not doing that work, when they're just really reactive and in their kind of hurt in a way, and just like the childhood triggers. You said it like that, it hurt my feelings. I'm like, yes, okay, let's talk about that. Or let me just reword it. Let me just explain the situation. And sometimes people are not willing to even listen to that or give you like the benefit of the doubt. And I feel like the more you work on yourself, the lonelier it sometimes gets. But at the same time, you also start to like not give any F's anymore. You're like, okay, if you want to take it like that, it's fine. I'm just going to be over here if you want to talk, but I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to like cater to your temper tantrum right now. Just like drawing boundaries like that when you're just like, I'm exhausted. This isn't leading anywhere. When you like honor yourself in that way, and then you're like, I honor you as well. I'm not going to escalate this because it's not going to work. It's not worth it. So I'm just, throwing in the towel in a way.
I mean, it's the thing, the more you listen to your intuition, and the more that you really start to trust yourself and set those boundaries, you're going to change. You're going to change. Like the people that you're going to spend your time with are probably going to change. I mean, yes, we have family, and that relationship can be really good, or it can be a little bit more difficult. But that's where the boundaries come in. And just really, really standing in your power and saying, do I want to fill that person's teacup up or not? It's like, it's a choice. It's a choice. Yeah.
Exactly. You're allowed to change, and they're allowed to change or not change. And then sometimes you just grow apart, and that's kind of painful. But it's always like worth remembering that you need to again, honor yourself to be able to work forward and then leave something behind if it's just not a fit anymore. And I think that's one of the most uncomfortable parts when you you move around the world, you move somewhere else, and then you come back home and you feel like time stood still for them, and you want to communicate how much you've changed and what you accept now and what you don't anymore. And then people try to put you back. And then a lot of people experience that, like over Christmas, for instance, when they feel like, oh my God, why am I regressing to be like this rebellious teenager self again? Why am I like so triggered, even though I know I worked on my childhood wounds and whatever. But it's the environment. It's like all of the attached memories and the habits you've developed and what your body stored, right? Like it just doesn't evaporate just because you looked at your shadow once, or, I don't think it will ever fully go away, because it's like a group effort. Everybody has to like work on themselves in a way. It's just really honoring your boundaries then.
Yeah, it's always interesting, when clients kind of go back to the environment that they've been trying to get out of, and they see it with fresh eyes, and that's kind of the test. That really is a test about maintaining those boundaries and honoring yourself in that environment which doesn't fit you anymore, where expectations are pretty high.
You're just like a different person. And it's kind of interesting to realize that if you think about it, there's like a gazillion there's just a different version for yourself for every single person you meet. Like nobody will see you the exact same, because they're always viewed from their own lens and the situation you meet and whatever information they have about you. So like no friend of yours will describe you the exact same or feel about you the same. And so there's all of these different versions of yourself, and you cannot be the public relations manager for that. You only have so much control to tell people what they should think about you. And I think a lot of people try to people please to have more control over that image that they want to portray, but they can't eventually ever have that. And especially with like ADHD, for instance, we have to mask a lot. Like sometimes I even do it consciously, where I feel like this person isn't safe and I'm just going to placate them. Or like, for instance, I went to a different therapy session a while ago, and I showed up to get help for my ADHD, because like I wasn't raised on how to handle that. I had no information. I just was given pills and that's that. And I was like, well, that's very helpful. I don't want to numb myself in a way. I need to like work with it, not against it, or just try to solve it. And so I went there specifically for that. And he was just like, oh, you have so much energy. You talk too fast. Like we need to calm you down. We need to like find a structure for you. I'm like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make me a neurotypical. You're trying to do exactly what I've been doing in my school life, which is why I got depression in the first place. I'm not going to do this. And so I was trying to direct the sessions to something that would be more helpful in line with what I'm thinking. So I had to like put in so much more work to direct him into something that felt comfortable for me, instead of working together with me and my needs. And then the very last session, he was like, so we made a lot of progress. He went through whatever he wrote. And he's like, so I noticed in the first session, you were like moving around all the time, like stimming, like talking, because I thought it was a safe zone. And then I consciously put on a mask where I was just like sitting there and like fiddling underneath the table so he wouldn't see, or just, when he wasn't looking, I would just like try to find visual stims or whatever. And then at the last session, he was just like, yeah, so you calmed down a lot. I really like that. So like, you're really a really settled person and grounded. And I was just like laughing inside. I'm like, dude, you're just not safe for me to show my true self, because you told me it's not good enough. And that's so sad, honestly. And that's what we do a lot. And that takes so much energy. So yeah, also find intuition to tell yourself, like, I'm actually not going to continue this session. Like, why did I even push through? I don't know. Why?
This is the thing, like we learn, and, I always honor those experiences, because they always teach us something. They always, show us something. And yeah, you're like, I wasn't being my real self. And probably saying to yourself, right, next time I'm going to show you more of the real me, with the right people. This is the
exactly thing. You need to also like look into yourself and see where it is safe to show all of yourself, because you can be vulnerable, and there are like people out there who will take advantage. And so you need to also use intuition for that. And I feel like in the end, that's what intuition does. It's just there to protect you and make you safe and happy. It's just a survival mechanism. It's not something to work against or something that just puts you on a rabbit trail and you're like, I don't know where this is going. This is weird, like Alice in Wonderland style. No, it's just like it's your inner compass. It's there to, like, your GPS.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think, out of everything that we said, that is the most important thing to remember. Like, it is just like a very strong cave woman, like, survival system, and you got to trust it, but also you kind of got to, like, be like, okay, like, is that really like a danger that you're telling me about right now, or is this something that my cave woman is kind of conjuring up?
Yeah.
That can happen. That can also happen. There is a bit of a fine line, I would say, between like inner wisdom, but also just straight out fear,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it helps to actually talk to other people who you trust and who, like, you're comfortable and safe with, and they don't give you the negative energy right away. They're just open to, like, practice your intuition with them, but also have like a soundboard with other people's ideas. I always like to externalize my thoughts to get clear on them, because I am in my head all the time, which is another reason for this podcast, because I just like talking and then I get like enlightenments, like little ideas. I'm like, oh, that's what I was feeling, or that's what I want to do, or like that seems right, just because I said it and it's out there in the world. And then I can see people's reaction, but also I can see my own reaction in my body. And it really helps to know what you respond to. Some people like visual stimulation, they like to draw it or journal it, or write an essay or a song about it. And I like talking.
Yeah. And that's definitely one of the strategies that you'll find in human design. For some people, you just got to talk it out. I mean, literally, you have to say it to yourself, and then you can come to your own conclusion. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think there's like no end goal or finish line ever. You're just constantly upgrading, leveling up, like figuring out yourself. I think like the main kind of purpose in life is just to like get to know yourself and honor that, being unapologetic while also being obviously nice to people and not being like hurtful intentionally. But it's just to put yourself first isn't a selfish act in itself if you're not, being malicious.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's also like the difference between love and fear. If you just like coming from a compassion for myself, then I can extend the compassion to others because I already practice it, because I already live it. But if I'm always scared of things going wrong, then I'm scared of other people because they could do things wrong. They could throw me off. And if you have your back, like you said before, then, some things always work out. Because you got yourself, you don't have to rely on other people. It's great to ask them for help, not be just rebelliously independent and just isolate yourself. But no, when it comes down to it, you got yourself, you can get yourself out of it, be it with help of other people reaching out, or just fixing it with your skill set, or just walking away. That is also the gut feeling to me. Just like, I got you, because I'm like installed. Like you can't get rid of me. I'm like prefigured.
My love, I'm so sorry, but I have another appointment in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no. I was trying to like round it up. I was just trying to find a way. So yeah, and I think that kind of is a great conclusion to this podcast on intuition. That it's just a vague concept, but everybody is familiar with it if you just listen and if you are open to it. And if you've got any ideas or feedback you want to share, then I'm always happy to do that in the comments, or you send us an email. And then you should also follow Alice and say hi to her. Where can people follow you?
Yeah, so honestly, the best place to find me is just at www.speaktoalice.com. If you go directly there, then you can find all the other places that I'm hanging out. So go to speaktoalice.com.
Right. And do check out her regular courses, because she does group workshops and she always has such inspiring videos to share. And she's just an overall lovely person. So do check her out. Say hi to her. And I hope you all have a very lovely day. I hope you took something from this, and I hope you stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you so much. And thank you, Alice.
Thank you. Honestly, so many amazing ideas that we discussed. What a riot. I can't wait to read the comments.
Oh, thank you. Me neither. Okay. Have a lovely day. Stay empowered.
Yes, right on, rock on, rock
Right,
on.
and empower everyone. The entire world should be empowered in the nice way. Thank you so much for listening to this episode with the lovely Alice. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, because we covered so many different subjects, from human design to psychology to subliminal messaging to tapping into your intuition to being a multi-passionate entrepreneur and really owning that, because you deserve it. And other people will cherish you for all of this input that you can bring by not being completely specialized and narrowed in your focus, and tapping into more of a right-brained, creative, a bit more unpredictable approach to expressing yourself, your branding, your business, your marketing, because I think it is very important. There's so many strategies out there, so many how-tos, what you should and shouldn't do. So many coachings follow a very strict strategic approach, and there's room for that too. But at the same time, there needs to be room for creative and more free-flowing approaches. So if that resonated with you, I would love to see you back in the next episode with the lovely Katie I met on TikTok, who is a TikTok expert, and she's all about ditching the niching down approach. If it doesn't resonate with you, if you are also a multi-passionate, three-dimensional business entrepreneur who can also use all of the experiences and maybe even somewhat random interests to portray what you are about, what shaped your business, your experience, your skill set, and how you show up to really be relatable to people, to create a familiarity so that they feel at ease with you. This is more of an external approach than being with the hypnotherapist approach. So I think this is a really good complementing podcast episode that I cannot wait to share with you. So don't forget to subscribe and follow me on all the social media accounts, and also follow Alice and say hi to her, leave nice comments and feedback, maybe even book her. And all of the links are down in the show notes. And I wish you a fabulous week. See you soon, or hear you soon. Bye-bye.